Welcome, everyone. It is March 18th, 2025, and this is the 9 a.m. board briefing meeting. Please let the record reflect that in the conference room, we have Commissioners Jordan, Waldrop, French, and Kearns. Commissioner CUNY is out today. So we're going to lead off with a presentation from Mike Burgess. Going to cue us in on where we're at in Olympia.
Morning, commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Kearns. I'm just going to jump right into it. I have to be off here by about 9:25. I have a 9:30 with Senator Christian, ironically. But so I'm going to buzz through this pretty quick. A couple items that'll probably take a little bit more time. Today's day 65. The next real cutoff we have is April 2nd. That's the opposite House Policy Committee. So we're back in the point of session where we're back in committee right now. The Senate policy committees are hearing House bills and vice versa. So we'll run up to the April 2nd cutoff, and then the fiscal cutoff is on April 8th, the fiscal committee cutoff. So those are the next two big dates. Other big stuff happening today. The revenue forecast comes out, and that will help, help budget writers know kind of what their spending capacity can be. And then everything we've been told is we will see budgets next week on the 24th. And at that point, budgets tend to kind of suck all the oxygen out of the room once those are released. And then the legislature will spend, the final month hammering through those budgets. And ultimately, the biggest fight will be about revenue and what tax proposals can be passed or not passed. So that's just kind of where we're at, general lay of the land. Looking at the bill list we have, I'll just run through this quick. You'll notice that a number have dropped off. That's because they died last week at the House of Origin cutoff. But 1135, the local government planning bill, that's the one that we didn't care for at first, but it was amended. It was moved out of committee yesterday, so that bill's in good shape as long as it stays that way. 1218, this is that competency evaluation bill that's harmful, would increase costs to you all. It did move out of the House, but as nothing's been scheduled yet in the Senate, and that bill would be subject to April 2nd cutoff. The 911 bill, let's come back to that. But 1813, this is the procurement bill. That's a good bill for the county. Also needs a hearing. And same with the law enforcement aviation support bill. And then 5360 is the environmental crimes legislation. It was amended when it left the Senate, and the intention was to, I don't want to say exempt, but essentially exempt permit holders. If you're adhering to your permit, you wouldn't be subject to the bill. And then the other is there was supposed to be some protections in there for local workers. I've been told there's a lack of clarity, a lack of clarity with that language. So I want to share it with Kyle and then get back to you. We'll talk more about that because this is going to be a pretty contentious bill for the remainder of session. In particular, the folks with Inland Empire Paper testified against the bill last week when it was heard. So the bill's got a long way to go, but I do want Kyle to look at it, or somebody else there at the county, and I'll share it with him to see if that language did in fact alleviate some of the concerns that he had specifically on your employees. Back up to the 911 bill. Ron, one of the links I sent you there was the amendment language that was adopted on the House floor as the bill left the House. Scott and I have been talking about this a bit, and Scott's going to fill you in on some of the changes that were done to it. But just mechanically, the bill has a hearing this afternoon in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. And so, Scott, I'll let you if you want to cover that real quickly, that'd be great.
Sure. I was talking with Representative Volz last week. He'd been trying to make some tweaks to the bill. What he had offered as an amendment and was accepted was further clarifying how the 911 excise tax would be apportioned, if you will. It had some interesting original language with call volumes. It wasn't really related to how the excise tax was generated. It then moved to an equal. It was amended to be an equal sharing, which is also slightly confusing. His latest amendment was to have the taxes apportioned based on how they are originated, how the taxes are generated to begin with. DOR is the entity who has to do that. It's not necessarily the same as sales tax revenue because it's landline based and cell phone based. You got to get a different set of data for it. So his amendment basically says, in the interim, until the DOR can come with a report, if they don't have a report based off sales tax origination, and then once DOR has the information, base it off how the taxes are originated. So the way the taxes are originated is a fair way to do it because that would be jurisdictional based. So that's what it shows right now. That's what's going over into the House or to the Senate, I believe. And it did pass. So in looking at it, one of the things that I thought was an additional change to offer up is to trigger it once if a jurisdiction elects to have their own PSAP. If they don't elect to have their own PSAP, the taxes should stay where they're at with the regional system. But if a jurisdiction establishes their own PSAP, taxes should appropriately go to them. Same with the 1/10 tax as well. So that's something Mike and I have talked about. I think he had met with Riccelli, Senator Riccelli yesterday and shared that with him. So, and I shared it with the SHREC board, a couple of members of the SHREC board. I think Cody Rohrbach, Chief Rohrbach is going to be signing up to testify. Just a light, appreciate the amendments that have been changed. It's moving towards more of a bill that maybe even SHREC can support. And he's also going to suggest the same language is added.
So once again, we have a funding model that favors cities over counties through the Growth Management Act because we can't generate the retail sales volume in the unincorporated area. So people in the unincorporated area are forced to buy stuff either in the cities and or buy it online. And so the negative consequence of this is, you know, if revenue is going to be diverted from unincorporated area to the cities, then, encourage more people to buy online. And then that way it stays in the port of origin, which would be in the unincorporated area. But, that's disappointing because it does, once again, punish counties over cities.
This, the way the excise taxes are generated, it's really going to be probably more of a population driven origination because it's really where your cell phone is or where your landline is. So I don't think that this would result in a disproportionate moving of the dollars, but I have not seen the data, so I don't know.
Well, if it was based upon sales, cell phone location or address, something like that, it'd be a lot more equitable.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. That's the way the bill was amended is it basically directs DOR to generate a report that shows where the 911 excise taxes, which are landline and cell phone based, where those are located at, and that's how the tax should follow.
Okay.
Question. In the absence of that, as the bill's amended, what's the division numerically? It's based on sales tax
It's based on sales tax origination. So just a quick reminder, yeah, city tax origination, city of Spokane sales tax origination is about 48%. The rest of the county is 52%. On a population, it's 42% in the city, 15% in the rest of the county.
And then if that report gets generated by DOR, then it goes to that.
That one, yeah. So it's really kind of an interim based off of origination, but then the ultimate goal is to base it off of the cell phone landline counts. Okay. So that's what I know.
So yeah, like I said, the bill has its hearing today. We'll just see how it continues to progress through the process. I've certainly alerted your delegation to your position on the bill, and have said there's been amendment language. But the other thing to note is, we're not alone in this. This does have statewide impact. So the state 911 folks are also weighing in. They're going to testify other today, but I haven't figured out, I don't know exactly what their testimony is going to be. But we're not the only ones in on this. The next thing that I had on the agenda was, I think last week I mentioned I was going to try to brief you on a couple of the law enforcement funding bills that were making their way through the legislature. you'll see a list there towards the top of the agenda. There's 3 of them. 5060 was the Holy legislation from Senator Holy. I guess it wasn't Holy, but Senator Holy's legislation that would have been the $100 million grant program. That bill did not make it out of the Senate, and it was put in the Senate X files, which is kind of a place they send bills. They're no longer going to consider this session, but this issue is going to be part of the budget agreement that comes, that we're going to reach by the end of April. The next bill on there, 5775, is one that popped up, and it's a local option sales tax. And the way the bill's drafted right now, it'd be councilmatic. You wouldn't have to go to the voters. It's 0.3 until July of 2026 that the county has exclusivity to go levy. If you don't do all 0.3, then the city could jump in, any of the cities could jump in and grab the increment that you didn't do. That bill has passed the Senate and it's over in the House. But the other bill I think that's got kind of the most momentum going right now is 2015. And Ron, I gave you the bill report there on that bill. It's a much more complex bill. So it has taxing authority in it and it has the grant program in it. And the way it would work is you as a county would have to qualify to receive the grants. And if you go, Ron, to page 4-ish, it talks about the criteria to qualify for the grant. Keep going. I think maybe it's on 5. Okay, monies, that's the tax. So keep going down. And it talks about the different things that a law enforcement agency would have to do to qualify for the grant program. So there's the list there. And then once the Criminal Justice and Training Commission authorizes that the county complies with those, then you would be allowed to levy a 1/10 tax that could be spent on a number of things that aren't just technically hiring and recruiting of new law enforcement officers. It was a little broader than that. Some of the, I guess I would call them some of the wraparound services that deal with law enforcement. And this bill comes from some of the more progressive members of the House caucus, a lot that were involved in the police reform bills that were passed, 4 and 5 years ago now, that had a position that sure they wanted to hire more law enforcement, but not without, and I would say this is my term, not theirs, but with some strings attached to what the dollars are going to. And then also some sideboards on what an agency has to do to qualify to get the money. The Association of Counties is in support of the bill, as is the Police and Sheriff's Association, WASPIC. I haven't heard anything specific from your county sheriff's office, but I haven't asked either. So this is probably something as a board you might want to check in with your local law enforcement folks or with the county sheriff's office to see their feelings about the bill, because there are criteria in that bill that you as a county would have to qualify for to first and foremost receive the grants. And then secondly, if you chose to levy the tax councilmatically, or I assume you can still put it out to the voters. But there's some hoops you'd have to jump through in order to qualify for that. That's a lot to digest. I think I only have a few more minutes here, and maybe your discussion will be more in depth on it, but wanted to make you aware that this bill's got momentum. And maybe you'd want to read through the bill report too, because the bill report's pretty self-explanatory about the bill. So throwing that out there to let you know that kind of what's going on with the law enforcement funding issue. That was one of the items on that we had talked about on your agenda. So happy to answer your questions if I can. But again, wanted to just loop you in on what's moving.
Mike, real quickly on 5775, if we legislatively enact that tax, how long, what's the term of the tax?
That, Commissioner, is a good question.
Thank you.
I believe it's in perpetuity.
Okay.
I don't see an expiration date on it, Commissioner. I think the only dates of note were, like I said, you'd have to adopt your portion by July 1 of 2026, which is a pretty short, I would imagine for you all is a pretty short time frame. Then if, like I said, if you don't, the cities can go in and make up the difference of what's left of the 0.3 if you didn't go all the way up to that level. But I wouldn't imagine, Commissioner, that 5775 would pass if 2015 did. You know, it wouldn't. They would, in some ways, they'd be in conflict of each other.
Right. Okay.
So I'm happy to answer any questions about it. The bill hasn't been scheduled for a hearing, but like I said, I think this is going to be on the table until the end of session. So might be worth passing off to the sheriff's office to see what they think about some of the criteria that are in that bill.
Happen to know somebody.
And then I want to follow up on one item from last week, Commissioner Jordan.
One second.
Sorry.
Mike, on the Holy grant bill.
Yes.
Was there no companion to that? That's just currently legislatively dead, or is there some other vehicle for that?
Well,
concept?
they can always just, Commissioner, they can always just do it in the budget. I mean, the Holy bill was great, but it still would have required the legislature to appropriate the money. So even if the Holy bill had passed and the budget writers didn't put it in their budget, it wouldn't have been funded. So at the end of the day, it was always going to be a fiscal question, a budget question. You know, when you're working on things like that, it is always nice to have the policy in statute and then the legislature funds it, but it's always going to be subject to that. And this 2015 is the same way. The local option tax, of course, is not subject to state appropriation, but the grant program that's created in that bill is. So this bill would be the vehicle theoretically for the $100 million pool pot of money. And that's something you'll remember that Governor Ferguson had said he would not sign a budget unless it contained that during his inaugural address. So again, this is just going to be the vehicle, I think, that is in play for the next 5 weeks. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Last week too, we talked about, I guess it's the waste to energy bill. That bill did not make it out of the Senate. And you had mentioned that you had heard that there was maybe another bill out there or some other possibility to amend that language into. I'm at the time, it didn't dawn on me the bill you're talking about, but it is a bill I'm familiar with. But that bill's pretty limited and the title is very narrow. And it's a bill that deals with the Climate Commitment Act and auction pricing for the credits. And I don't think that bill, the waste to energy bill, would fit under that title. So here in Olympia, the bills have titles. In order to amend them, the subject has to fit under that title. And I don't think it does. I'm happy to be proven wrong. But if that was the one, Commissioner, that you had heard about, I don't think that would work. So the bill, it'd have to be done through another avenue. But you had asked me about it. I wanted to follow up on that.
Can you send me the number of the one you're talking about, Mike?
I can. I'll text it to you. Does that work?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. That's all I have, Commissioners. So.
All right. Any final questions for Mike? All right.
All right. Thank you all. See you soon. Bye.
All right. Kevin Ritchie.
Good morning, and
Sure.
it's not on the agenda, but if you guys recall, a few months ago, you approved an MOU and a program for our electronic detection canine. The canine has returned from training with the handler, and so I thought I'd bring them both over here to introduce them, so you can see what we got from it. And since it's Detective Meyer, he's going to be he's the canine handler, and this is the dog. So I'll just let him introduce real quick. Up. Come on, up. Good girl.
So this is Canine Hattie. She is a 2-year-old yellow lab. She originally came from Paws with the Cause, working with people with disabilities. For whatever reason, she didn't work out there. So the trainer purchased her, started working with her on scent detection. She was with the trainer for about 4 months. Applied, got selected for donation from OUR Rescue. They paid for the entirety of the trip with the exception of per diem and salary. So all travel, airfare, hotel, and the cost of the dog with the training. She is a food-driven electronic detection canine, which means anything that stores or transmits electronic data, she will detect. So anything from a SIM card, a micro SD card, all the way up to hidden cameras, cell phones. pretty much anything you plug into a computer or is a computer, she will hit on. We just got back from 2 weeks of training where she was selected. She was selected as being one of the top dogs there for her drive and her nose. So we were the first ones to go through certification. We passed through certification with 0 false hits and locating all 3 devices in 4 rooms within 5 minutes. She's very friendly. She's also cross-trained as a therapy/service dog as well. So going on traveling, things like that, she rides at my feet in the airplane. She'll be trained to assist us with child forensic interviews, or if we get call outs in the middle of the night for in-progress investigations to help with victims.
And she spent a lot of time walking around the office over there.
Yes, she
and,
does.
This morning, I saw the group of our office staff heading down toward the sexual assault unit, which has become a very popular place now. And so I
Yes, it is.
said it's limited to 5 minutes per person, so we got to rotate it out. So she's been pretty popular.
Yep, they already want to put up a sign-up sheet to have their daily visit, so we'll see how that goes.
Resource that's not readily available pretty much in the area we're at. I think Yakima is the closest. I don't think there's anything between here and Missoula and Canadian border down to probably Boise. So it's we're one of the first in the area to have this tested.
We anticipate when word gets out, she's going to be used a lot regionally. There's going to be people calling for search warrants and probably for the correctional facilities and those types of things.
Washington ICAC's already came forward and said that they'll do a reimbursement up to a certain amount for training costs and overnight stays if it calls for it. I would imagine Idaho ICAC task force will do the same as well.
Can I ask, on an electronic device, what is it she picks up on?
Sure. So there is a chemical compound that goes on the electronic device. The short acronym is TPPO. The long acronym is triphenylphosphine oxide. It goes on there. It helps cooling so that the devices don't overheat. And that is the scent that they're trained to hit on.
And it's pretty much in every electronic device on the
It
board,
is,
right?
It is. Yeah. I just ordered some new training devices for like outlets that are hidden cameras. So have a little micro camera in there, have a micro SD card that predators use to record things. We tried out this morning. She hit on, she tried to bite it and grab it out of the wall. So as long as it has that scent with it, she'll find it. She's going to be an amazing asset.
Like SIM cards and
SIM cards, micro SD
cards.
SD cards, USB thumb drives, hard drives, cell phones. Pretty much anything
Things
that's
that have been hidden or not necessarily lost, but hidden somewhere.
right. She's primarily going to be used for child exploitation investigations, but she has a ton of other uses. We certified on vehicle searches, so she can locate air tags on vehicles and or listening devices inside vehicles. We did outdoor searches where she can locate cell phones or other devices out in a field or within a treat area buried. I think not necessarily her, but I think the deepest one they've had is up to 12 inches in the ground. They've located it. So they're very impressive dogs to watch.
Thought you guys would like to see as kind of a, low cost investment in our community and enhancement to our law enforcement service, especially back in the investigative units.
One of
High
the other-
talent.
Yeah, one of the other dogs in the training already went on their first search warrant yesterday, the first day back in the office. They located 3 devices that the search team missed. Looking forward to seeing what came out of that and if there was anything found on those. Good girl.
She's probably pretty good at finding treats too, if she can find SD cards.
She is. She's a food driven dog, so she gets no treats. She gets no extra food. She works for her food, and that's the main drive for her.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. See, that was pre-planned because now my next thing I'm asking for is, money, so.
Oh.
I see you, Jan.
Should I just leave or
That's your game.
should I just follow the dog out?
Follow it up.
This will be the hard time.
Yeah.
Bingo cards.
So for the real reason why I'm here is to discuss the sheriff's office vehicle budget for 2025. If you remember last year, I presented a vehicle replacement plan that kind of had a plan for replacing 25 vehicles a year based on mileage and then rotating the older ones out and selling them or rotating them into different units. That's, I kind of talked about that, the top of this sheet. I hope you guys got the right one. I had to submit several different sheets, but the one I submitted on Friday is the correct one. Currently,
Is this one on the screen, correct?
oh, yeah, yes, could you scroll down to the bottom? Yes, that's correct. So currently in our fleet, for our downtown patrol division, we have about 14 spare cars. And then 8 pool cars. And the pool cars are the cars that we use for when someone brings their issued car in for maintenance or it gets damaged or something like that. So they use a pool car so they can stay working basically. The spare cars are what we're going to issue to our new deputies. Right now, we have 30 people in training, 30 trainees that are due out of the training car by the end of the year. About half of those will come downtown. And if you see the numbers, then that would take all of our spare vehicles away and leave us with 8 pool cars. And then at the beginning of 2026, we have 4 more deputies who are slated to come out on the road. So that will leave us with 4 pool cars in our fleet. All other cars will be issued out. The problem with that is 4 pool cars that could be one bad weekend and then we're down to 0 pool cars and not enough cars for people to drive because there could be an accident, there could be maintenance issues, there could be all sorts of different things and then we're out of cars. We like to keep 10 spare or pool cars available. That's kind of that's what's been working for us pretty well. Ford has an ordering window this year. It's in June. And if you don't order in that ordering window, then you have to wait till next June. And it's simply a numbers game. We may make it to next June and then order and then not get cars until 2027. But we will be down to 3 pool cars. And like I said, that can be gone pretty fast. And then we will be out of cars and having to find cars somewhere else because we will not be able to order them from Ford. And so what we are asking is that we are given the budget to order 7 cars in the ordering window of 2025, which in June of 2025. This should give us, based on the numbers and based on projections, it should give us 10 pool vehicles next year after everything else is issued out. Obviously, the new cars would go out in the field and pool cars would be replaced by older vehicles. The current cost of each vehicle is $67,729. So the 7 vehicles would be a budget of $474,000. Currently, there's nothing in the vehicle budget, so this would be an increase above and beyond what our current budget is. There's really no other way to put it other than we can try to make it, but we're going to be. Next year at this time, it could be pretty bad. Especially, and then another issue is we don't know when Ford's gonna open their ordering window for 2026. It's traditionally been around June, but there have been years when they have supply issues where they just don't have an ordering window, and so they don't offer new vehicles. That happened to us a couple years back. I know at the city of Spokane, that happened to them a couple years in a row, I believe. And they didn't get any vehicles and they were scrounging and trying to buy vehicles on the secondary market, which is what we would need to do.
True state, get the dog back.
Yeah, and the dog is available at any time if you want to come. That's all I had.
Of the requested number, the 7, this is for unincorporated.
Yes, all for unincorporated.
Because the Valley, you guys, you acquire them, but they reimburse directly.
Yes, however they do it, they purchase it. I believe they're going to order 23 or 24 this year. But they pay for those 100%.
So the 7 would get back up to 10 pool.
Yes. Hopefully, I mean that is barring any unforeseen incidents, like I said, like a major crash, or something like that. That there is when we total a vehicle, it's generally replaced or the insurance covers it, but getting a replacement vehicle for that can be problematic sometimes too.
Don't wait for the next ordering window, right?
How many So how many operable vehicles do you guys have then?
Patrol.
Sure.
Well,
Because that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
These are for patrol, because you talked about the pooled cars,
Yeah.
you talked about, so what's overall, how many
right now, and
cars can be driven total?
I'm gonna be off by 1 or 2 numbers, I know I am, but right now in the field, we have about 98. That are being driven,
cars.
yeah,
Okay.
by patrol deputies, and then, where is it, right here, and we have 14 spare and 8 pool vehicles, so back in the lot, right, if you go back there, you'll see vehicles sitting back there, those are the pool, and the spare vehicles, and those are the ones that we need to issue out to the new people getting out of the training car.
Okay.
And, you know, we're not doing bad on mileage. I think I have a couple numbers here. We have 4 of the fleet vehicles are over 100,000 and some are 90,000. So we're not going super high on miles right now. So I think we can, you know, as far as mileage goes and service life of the vehicle going another year is going to be okay. It's just a matter of running out. That's what we're facing. When the garage originally gave me the numbers, it looked like we were going to be down 1 by the end of the year, but they didn't realize I wanted all of the pool vehicles as well. So that brought us up to +4. And if you remember, the plan was last year to order 25. So this is a pretty big reduction to that number.
So I'm going through the spreadsheet here. So saying, so 98, and then 4 fleet vehicles.
Those are the
So
ones that
this
are currently
full-time.
issued. They have over 100,000. That's just kind of a summary of the mileage.
Okay.
We have 4 of them that are over 100,000 miles, and 2 are over 90,000. So next year there'll be 110 to 120 and over 100,000.
Okay. So okay. So with your 98 with your pools, with your fleet, kind of all those cars that under certain circumstances can be on the road. How many total cars do you have then?
You
Is
just hit on one of my weakest.
Well, I'm just, is it the 98?
It'd be
plus the
120.
14
Yeah.
spares and then the 8 pool.
Yeah,
Okay.
120.
So 120 vehicle, and how many deputies do you have that do patrol?
Well, right now there's 98 and there's 14 coming, and then at the beginning of next year, there'll be 4 more.
Okay,
And that should bring us up to full strength.
okay.
How many retirees are coming?
I know of 2 for sure. And that will offset it a little bit. But then I'm also today presenting a grant opportunity to the state for the BHU unit, requesting funding for 3 more deputies through the BHU unit, and that would require us to buy 2 vehicles or provide 2 vehicles to them, 2 additional vehicles. So that cuts into those numbers. So if we're successful with that grant.
And are each of these, or the majority of these folks, when you're a patrol deputy, do you take the car home?
Yes,
at
they're
night?
all issued take-home vehicles.
You know, several months ago, I think when we were looking at staffing, there were a large number of folks that were on some sort of FMLA or the Washington Cares stuff. You know, a lot of them were, they're expanding families, so they were home with them. When those people are off the road for extended period of time, or maybe there's an injury, L&I, do they keep those vehicles when they're not at work, or do those kind of come back in as rotation if?
The best way to answer that would be it's a case by case basis. If it's going to be if someone's going to be out for 6 months, yeah, we take the vehicle back and issue it. If it's an FMLA situation where they're taking intermittent FMLA, we likely wouldn't do that because they would be gone for 3 months, coming back and then gone and then coming back. So it's a case by case basis, really. I know there are 2 people who are on extended, well, actually only 1 now on extended leave, and we do have their patrol people back.
Is there any, when you do these orders through Ford, is there any value to doing more or less Is there any like reduced cost?
I don't know the answer. I don't like a volume discount.
No, I'm just like, is it, if you only order 5 versus 7 or 8 or 10, is there no difference?
I don't think so, but I would need to confirm that with our.
Cause
fleet
we're talking
manager.
about smaller numbers here. I
Sure.
was just wondering.
That's a great question, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't recall, so I've done the ordering or helped with the ordering the last few years, and we've ordered around 25, and I don't recall there being a discount for at least those numbers, and so
Okay.
I don't know if we have to get up into the very large orders to get some sort of discount, but I can't think of one. If the city of Spokane ever reached numbers like, I don't know, no.
Just wondering if there was a value in doing a larger order or less, so. yeah.
The biggest thing with Ford is sometimes they just don't take orders.
What's the benefit of ordering new from Ford rather than having to scour the secondary market like the city had to?
Well, it's consistency. I can't talk now. Consistency with your fleet. You're gonna have different colored vehicles and obviously, different models and we've done that in the past. I remember back when I was on patrol, we had some issues with vehicles and we bought on the secondary market, we bought some Yakima used vehicles but they were, dark blue and different colored greens and whites. And so it makes your fleet kind of look off, and then you're buying used, so you don't have the warranties and there's maintenance issues that come along with that. And its availability as well. And with budget constraints and, the ordering windows being what they are, there's a lot of agencies that aren't willing to sell their operable vehicles. They'll sell vehicles with 150,000 miles on them, but they're not going to sell vehicles with 30 or 40. We could run into that issue as well. Much like us, we're not going to sell those, right?
Commissioner Kearns, were you looking at a chart, did you say?
Oh,
Or just this typed up?
It was what was up here. It was
Oh.
what he had on the screen. It's in our packet.
Is it just the?
It's just a Word document.
Oh,
Okay, want to make sure we were looking at the same thing. Okay.
I think the county, it was before I was here, Commissioner French, maybe you remember there was a program that I think when I first became a commissioner, I heard about it. I don't have done it since I was here, but there was some company that took used cars and then they restored them, they rebuilt the engines, they put in new transmissions, they completely went through the vehicle and then resold them. At the time, I think how it was explained to me was the cost. It was essentially 3 of those for the cost of 1 new vehicle. I know the previous sheriff didn't like that program. I don't know if you had any experience with those vehicles. Again, it was before, like, I think we had some of those vehicles still in operation when I became a commissioner, but I don't think we've purchased any from that company in my time since I've been here. So
I'm not familiar with it. I'm sure I drove them, but I'm not familiar with I could look into it.
okay. Yeah, and I thought what I was told, again, this is years ago. I think what I was told was it was some outfit out of California where like your example of, a car with 150,000 miles, they would get those, they would completely go through them, they would completely refurbish them, rebuild the engines, new transmission, and then they would sell them. And it was still with all that work done on it was less than a new one, but
I'll ask our fleet
I
manager.
don't think it's probably anything we've done at least in the last decade, but I don't know. And again, I wasn't here when we did it. It was just things I was told about after the fact that, hey, we used to do this, but I don't, do you remember that
Yeah,
program?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we did that when I first joined the board. And we were struggling financially to come out of the recession and stuff.
Okay.
I'm willing to look at anything, obviously, and also I'll go back and ask the fleet manager about that if there's still something like that out there. And
Doing that with the sheriff's office, and we were also doing it with Public Works.
Okay.
And we ended up acquiring a number of large dump trucks and stuff like that on auction and did very well.
So I'm just wondering what Do you have a like 2 to 3 year plan, or have you looked at like the age of some of the vehicles, and this is just like kind of a one-time ask, but do you see another ask coming, or it'd be nice to have a sense of a plan over the next couple of years of what those vehicle needs would be, and then maybe how that could be budgeted into the sheriff's budget moving forward, right? Cause it's kind of a capital thing, but I don't know if traditionally it's been under the capital program.
Leave it out.
It has.
It has,
It has,
okay.
yeah.
It hasn't.
And I know we didn't do that in the last capital, in our budget this last year. So,
The plan from that I presented for last year was 25 patrol vehicles and 4 unmarked vehicles for detectives. And that was based on mileage and based on hiring and based on, you know, our regular rotation. And then rotating vehicles out and either giving them to different units or selling them for, you know, some money. So honestly, 25 with our fleet size is what we would need every year to maintain the mileage under a specific amount. We are going to get higher in mileage. Our fleet is gonna get older and it's gonna start. Our fleet manager says that about the 150,000 mark is when we start losing transmissions and things like that. And if we don't maintain the plan that we presented last year, we will reach that and we'll just start having to fix cars. I mean, but I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, we can't change the budget. We can't change the revenue. We just have to figure out how to make it work. So the plan is 25 per year. I'm asking for 7 this year to maintain some stability. And next year, I'm sure I'll be back here asking for something. I don't know what it'll be. I'll evaluate it next year and see what we need to maintain. And that'll be based on the mileage of our fleet. It'll be based on maybe we had some retirements and some vehicles are put back in the pool that we can reissue out. You know, we're not gonna. It's not my plan to build a fleet with 20 extra vehicles. I just need enough to be able to issue, and then when somebody can come trade one out if they need to get their car worked out or something like that.
Because when do you need an answer on this? I mean, yeah, you were talking
By
about
June.
June
Yeah.
being
I
the
don't-
window. How much advance notice do you need to place that? I don't know if you caught yesterday's budget presentation.
Well, no, but I.
It's not fantastic.
I saw one at the leadership meeting, so I.
Oh, okay.
Kevin was with us.
Similar to that.
I'm aware, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
that's why,
Well, you tried to get in here quick before.
That's why I brought
I brought the dogs.
Well, I get it, and the sheriff gets it too. This is reality, and so we don't want to be in a situation where we have 10 people who are coming out of the training card, we have 4 vehicles to give them, and then we have to figure out a way to find vehicles for them to drive when they get out on their own. That's what we're trying to avoid.
But we thought the comfort dog was a whole nother reason. Wasn't it?
I appreciate that you're coming back with, you know, kind of like what is the bare necessity in the next year or two?
And I'll do it every year. I'll sit down with our fleet manager like I did this time and go over the numbers and, figure out what the bare minimum we can get by is, until we can get back to a place where we can order 25 a year, hopefully that day comes before I retire.
Can you just recirculate what your plan was? Can you send that back out?
Oh, the vehicle replacement plan,
Yeah, so we
absolutely.
can kind of look
Yeah.
at, best case scenario, what's that based on? I also appreciate this is maybe a little bit more reality based or just recognizing the constraints that we have. I mean, we're looking at a $20 million deficit next year. So I just want to be able to kind of soak that information in and consider it.
I asked an unpopular question.
Go for it.
Best way to reduce the number of vehicles purchased every year is to have a full non-take home and utilize. So it's going backwards, I'm sure, and that's probably one of the things that our deputies enjoy, but that is one way that we could reduce the amount of vehicles that are needed in rotation, because people come in and just grab a vehicle
That would have labor contract implications because it is one of the benefits that we negotiate with them as far as a take-home vehicle and you know, they don't have to travel to and from work with their own vehicle. And yeah, so it's a benefit that we've built into the contract. And so the labor unions would certainly want to negotiate that, the impacts of that. But you're correct. And I worked here for almost a decade when we had pool cars like that. And, you know, we drove to work and changed and went and got keys off the board and went and drove. And those vehicles got pretty beat up, but that is certainly a way to do it. And you're right, it's a smaller fleet.
When was that change made?
Oof, that's a good question. I want to say, wow, 2010 to 2013, somewhere in there. It's been a while. And then we moved to a program where we had take-home vehicles, but they were shared take-home vehicles. So the opposite shift would share with the other shift. You take it home during your work cycle and then you switch it out. So we had a couple different plans and then moved into a full take-home vehicle plan.
Just a question for Jeff. It might be too early to tell, you know, how the sheriff's office is doing in terms of spending its budget. Are they low? Are they high? As we get closer to June, we might have a sense of whether there's existing budget capacity that could be looked at. So I don't know where we're at, and it might be too early to say.
Yeah, we were planning on including that in the April meeting.
Okay.
Start with the first quarter.
For every department.
Snapshot, yeah. That'd be, wouldn't be the sheriff, that'd be across work. One of the advantages of moving to Workday, it's actually fairly easy to pull that.
Yeah.
It's not the work it used to be in the old system. So we're just bringing this, you have percentage, you know, sound like parks, probably way underspent at this point because they spend so much in the summer. But if you put some common sense to it, you'll be able to see what makes sense.
But it seems like most of that would be salary. And it sounds like you're doing pretty well, which is a good thing.
We're doing well as far as hiring goes. Yeah. The good news is, you know, we budget for overtime based on, you know, what we've expended the last few years. And that is going to, I mean, there's just no way it's not. It's going to lighten up toward the end of the year. When we get these 14 people out on the road, there just isn't going to be the overtime opportunities that there are now. So that will light up. I don't know what the impact is going to be in this year's budget. I've always said that 26 is going to be the year where we're going to see big savings in overtime. As long as we can, you know, keep our people. But this year, I think we're going to see some, whether that's 200,000 or $1 million, I don't know.
And then, I'm sure Kevin, your finance team is monitoring and looking to see if there's any other opportunities within the budget to do this, because you guys would be in the best position to know.
If the direction is to try to find this in our budget, I'll go back there and we'll start trying to find it in our budget. But you know, I guess I look at it from the standpoint that we didn't budget for this and we didn't include it in our budget, and we're pretty solid. I think we did pretty well last year with, you know, managing our budget, and so that's my goal this year as well. You know, I'm the no guy. My office is, if you have a question about the budget, go ask Kevin, and I always say no. So that's what
I have heard that.
That's what I do. Yeah. So it's my goal to be underspent every single year, and my goal this year too. But I'll carve it out anywhere you tell me to, and do the best we can. I mean, you know, we can always, I mean, it's money, right? We can always take it out of overtime budget and hope that we don't need to do a catch up at the end of the year. You guys, I do the same thing in my other life. So.
All numbers. Yep. I think this seems like something, so you don't have, it's not.
June would be the,
You have to know today.
I don't know the exact date in June, but
Okay.
June. Would
Okay.
Would be the.
So we've got some time. I think this needs to be a part of our discussion.
The next budget meeting is April 21st. I think I
Okay.
said the wrong number yesterday. That's Monday the 21st.
All right. This will be discussed as a part of that whole package and everything we go through.
I appreciate the audience, and let me know. I mean,
And the Commissioner Jordan's request, can you send us
I'll
all
send it.
the vehicle replacement plan?
You bet.
All right. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Right, next up, Jordan Neal. And it's our building director, and he's gonna talk to us about the interim policy. To comply with initiative 2066.
Yeah. Morning, Commissioners. I wanted to give a little bit of background on the initiative 2066 that's related to the obligation to serve natural gas to customers in the area that requested. There have been some changes to the Washington State Building Code that in the Washington State Energy Code related to that natural gas mandate. And that citizens initiative was approved on the November 24 election and took effect December 5th. So right now, what we're trying to do with this policy is we're trying to put together a gap filling proposal, as the State Building Code Council has not yet prepared a final rule that will clarify how counties will employ this code. We're seeking to have a clear path to compliance for applicants that, especially that are developing housing in the county. And the clearest path that we've seen to do that is to address the energy credits that are allocated based on the selection of energy sources. Next slide, please. The main concerning statute that was approved in Initiative 2066 is this new RCW, which there's similar provisions applying to the counties, cities, and air pollution authorities, which state that the county shall in no way prohibit, penalize, or discourage the use of natural gas for any form of heating or any other use in appliance or equipment in any building. Our perspective on this is that if there are disproportionate credits available for otherwise efficient natural gas equipment, that would penalize or discourage natural gas and would take us out of compliance with the new initiative and with the current Washington Energy Code. As the State Building Code Council has not yet spoken, we did not want to deploy this as a definitive code change. We wanted to have a policy that we could easily address in the future once more specific guidance comes down. In addition, there are some litigation cases both for and against this policy. So it remains to be seen what form that takes. So there's two different sources of energy credits. There's the standard energy credits in table R 406.3. And then there's an additional source of energy equalization credits in table R 406.2. And between those two sources, applicants are instructed to meet a certain number of credits based on the size of their building and the type of equipment that would be providing heat for that unit.
You want me to dive in here? I'll give a bit more background specifically on the credits. Typical house requires 8 credits. That's 1,500 to 5,000 square foot house requires 8 credits. A house under 1,500 require 5 credits. And if you're 5,000 or 5,000 or greater, then you get 9 credits. You have to, in the code, you have to select a credit out of R406.2. That's where you're selecting the type of system you're going to be heating with. After you select that system type, then you use table R406.3. And specifically to the type of system, you'd be looking at credit between credits 3.1 and 3.11. We only show 3.1, 3.2 because they're the ones that we're working on in this specific case. But there's a bunch of different options specifically for a heating system. It's 3.1 through 3.11. It goes all the way from 1.1 to 7. So there's a lot of different options in there. The first one we would want to talk about is system type 1. That's the one specifically for combustion heating. It includes gas boilers as well. What we have done is we have modified to get from 0 to 1.5 credits for the system type for combustion furnace or boilers. And then to incentivize still high efficiency, we've given additional half credit for 3.1, which is the other credit typically taken with that system type. And it's only allowed to be taken by that system type in the first table, 406.2. Next slide. We've done a similar concept on system type 2. System type 2 is a heat pump with backup of electric or gas. We have, instead of just modifying system type 2, because it already gives it 1.5 credits, we've gone to the typical credit taken for system type 2 and only allow for system type 2, which is 3.2 out of 406.3. What that does is we've modified the half credit given normally to 1.5. And what it does is it matches it up with system type 4, which is a heat pump with no backup. And I'll get to system type 4 specifically. We did an amendment there as well. But what it does is it makes it so it matches up with the heat pump option in system type 4. We also moved the footnote B in system type 2, which limited when the backup could turn on for a combustion furnace to not be a stipulation for that system type. Next slide. System type 4 already gives 3 credits. What we did is we amended the language to match that of the credits you see in 3.1 and 3.2, which allows for high efficiency. So when we add that language back in the system type 4, now you can have a backup always of a high efficiency natural gas, all taking different types of credits in between 3.1 and 3.11 in table R406.3. So what it does is it expands the allowance for backup heat safety like geothermal heat pumps, very high efficiency equipment, but we live in a climate where you're actually going to end up having to turn on a regular standard electric backup heat. This just allows for that high efficiency backup heat to be used. That was a major complaint of the industry, actually, at system type 4 specifically not allowing that. And then next slide. We have one more. This is showing system types 1 and 2, reflecting the change I just discussed. I did think I glossed over one other change to match up is system type 3.2. We did amend the R2 section. R2 is just another way of saying apartments, multifamily. That would equal, instead of 0.5, it goes to 2. And we did also make a similar adjustment to 3.1. And we did different adjustments because if you use system type 1 or system type 2, they have to equal the same amount and how we're moving through that problem. So and you'll see 3.2 is 2 credits and system type 3.1 is 1.5. And that's because if you look at the system type, it'll match up to the same number too. So if you chose system type 1 or system type 2, you'd arrive at the same number as default for multifamily as well. I think that relatively covers it besides specific questions.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Commissioner
I've got
French?
one. So refresh my memory because it's been a while since I've been into this table. With system 4, you get 3 credits for using system 4. But if you use either a system 1 or 2, which are natural gas, well, actually 2 is a heat pump. You get the 1.5, but then you also get another bonus credit. Help me understand how you get to the 3, make them equal.
They're becoming equal on, so how we kind of designed the setup is system type 1 and 2, whether taking credit 3.1 or 3.2, depending on which one you choose, you would equal 3, which matches system type 4. The reason why system type 4 generally gets more credits is because the other options in 3.1 to 3.11 have very efficient options. Like my best example I'd say is like a geothermal heat pumps,
Right.
gas fired heat pumps. Technology is
Right.
relatively, some newer, some just is kind of almost, I'd say, good old faithful geothermal's been around a long time. But, it works. It's very efficient. I actually had this conversation with, we had a meeting with the Builder Association with, I think it's R&R Heating. It's more based on BTU and BTU out. And the system types allowed under 4 just have the options you can select have a higher BTU into BTU out. And that's how we kind of arrived at it. You can still use gas in the option with 4, system type 4. It's just maybe a backup, efficiency backup.
Right. Okay. So in your meeting with the home builders, reaction was
They provide support for this policy. The only piece that they want to look at, I don't have it in front of me, but they want to look at the hot water heater section because there's a heat pump water heater that gives 2 credits and there's a high efficiency gas water heater that gives 1 credit. No jurisdiction at this point has looked at the water heater section specifically. It's something that we could look at in the future if we wanted to.
okay. So that's still on the table then.
I would say we could put on table, we'd be the
Consideration.
first one doing it. It's something to evaluate, not necessarily make a decision, in my opinion, right this moment.
Thank you.
Question.
Yep.
So just to recap a few things, there's been no guidance from the Building Code Council.
None whatsoever.
Okay. And the initiative has language in it that specifically directs or applies to counties. Correct. And then can you just talk about what it means when it says interim policy?
Yeah, so in terms of the State Building Code Council is the one that provides the final rule. And they've enacted the citizens initiative into the county code, but they have not finalized the rules put into the administrative code related to the energy code, which is where we pulled these tables from. And so really we're trying to resolve this conflict just until the State Building Code Council has provided that final rule and or has, provided their own interpretation of the citizens initiative.
And then you guys basically drafted them, doing the best you could. Is it fair to say that your goal was to comply with that initiative as close as you possibly could?
Yes, that was the goal. And we did have a previous version with a little bit less credit, but then what I found was when you tried to add up all the credits to 8 as required, you couldn't get there in a real feasible way, even with adding only a half or 1 credit. You could do it, but it was really not feasible from a financial standpoint from a builder.
So this is your best attempt to create a chart that does not discourage natural gas.
Exactly.
And then last question is, my understanding is there might be differences in how things are set up, but it's quite similar to a similar action that Pierce County took as an interim step. Is that generally fair?
I would say it's, most of the counties and districts have amended it anyway. It's similar to all in the fact that we're amending the credit section, and that's the point of focus currently.
Can I ask for interim, is it like previous interim things we've done where it's 6 months?
This would be set so far at interim until guidance is given.
Oh, okay.
Official guidance is given.
So that would be the timeframe.
Yeah.
In our. In whatever resolution we were to pass.
Yeah, we're certainly hopeful that the code council comes back before the end of the year and provides a clear answer.
I would say in a worst case, there is a code cycle coming up. In a worst case, it would automatically resolve at the end of the code cycle because it'd be only valid for 2021 code cycle permits.
Just one more. Oh,
Right.
and just to clarify, there's litigation, but there's no court order pausing the initiative at this point. So it's taken effect.
Yeah, there's not a court order at this point that pauses the initiative. It's in the code at this point.
Mr. French? So, last week I talked to a friend of mine, on the building code council. There's not many of them. I'll throw that in. They are slow walking this. The process is, once the building code council agrees to take it up, then it goes to the TAG, which is Technical Advisory Group. They will massage it, have public hearings, take input, and then come back with a recommendation. And then the building code council will then take it on the recommendation. It will be interesting. They could do this as an emergency, and they've chosen not to. And so the unofficial determination is slow walk it. And so my suspicion is they're going to wait until the court gives them direction and not fulfill the mandate with regard to complying with the initiative. And so we'll be in that realm until either the court decides or, as he's indicated, they do a regular update. But I think absent court action, even the update is going to hang on to what they had, not comply with the initiative. So I'm betting, Matt, and I was betting with your money. That's how I bet.
Difficult position to be in.
So it should be in. So anyway, that's what I mean.
Any more questions? Are we good? All right.
Appreciate all your work on this.
Will this be coming on the consent agenda?
This afternoon.
Yes.
This was the one we kicked from last week. So. Okay. Thank you. Except Ben Bradabo. Stormwater comprehensive plan, rate adjustment summary.
It says counties don't do this. It's like. do it best we can.
Tables and credit. What fun.
On to the list, on the next topic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. We'll see. Maybe we'll get a check on that.
Didn't say it was low down.
Bring a dog, the therapy dog.
Yeah, where's your therapy dog?
Oh, she'd love to be here. Yeah, it's gonna be right into the dude.
Well, good morning, commissioners. This is a follow-up from our strategic planning briefing last week to talk about our stormwater comprehensive plan, proposed rate adjustment, and some of the information you asked us to come back to and bring forward in a briefing here. Wanted to highlight a little bit of what we're dealing with just in the immediate aftermath that runoff event we had a couple of weeks back here. We are approaching about 1.5 million in damage that may even climb closer to 2 as the freeze thaw continues to blow up more of our paved road network here. These are some of the images of the washouts and damage that we experienced due to our drainage situation out into the county where we don't properly have facilities to handle the stormwater, or we haven't been able to maintain facilities to handle our stormwater runoff. You can see different issues where we have edge loss, where we have washed out culverts, and where we have seen areas where we don't have adequate ditching, and therefore the water makes its way down into the roadways or roads in a significant manner. So we were asked exactly what these stormwater fees would be used for. And here's kind of that overall list here. We have our permitting components here. We have maintenance of our stormwater facilities. So that's in the urban and the rural, where we have lots of culverts in the rural, where we have all the dry wells and catch basins, and our pipe network here in the more urban area. Maintaining our treatment facilities. But here you start getting into some of the additional work we would be doing, and where the work is, formed in some manner by the road crews under 110, where it is outside the stormwater service area. So we wanted to give you some budgetary information. Our 2025 budget, you can see, is up above there. The green items are items that stormwater fees can be used for that are currently paid for out of 110. So right now in the 2025 budget, about $750,000 in stormwater funds do offset some work in 110 that is in the stormwater service area. So that's a lot of our street sweeping is the biggest component of that. But then a little bit of our backdraining and ditching work that is within that stormwater service area. As we would look into the proposed stormwater fee schedule and going countywide in 2026, you can see just kind of a proposed area of what we would be looking to do, and that offset to the road fund approaching more like $3 million. We'd really be expanding what we could offset in the sweeping component, but really blowing up our maintenance work and our culvert short span work, because that's what's completely unfunded right now. And we're going from a triage to a program. And then if we do the 4-year rate increase into 2029, that offset can grow to just shy of 6 million is what we anticipate, which would be a huge win for our infrastructure network. One little just note on this slide, it's kind of small in that asterisk there. We had already planned to spend down our fund balance a little bit in 2025 due to some of the new permit requirements, as well as a couple of additional capital projects. So our actual revenues in 25 are closer to 2.5 million, but we were planning on spending 3.5. And we'll see as that kind of adjusts as we move forward here. If we do expand the stormwater service area, we could potentially use some of the fund balance to offset this event we had in February, where we lost so much roadway, so that we're not in a huge hole for 2025 maintenance and preservation activities.
Right. Vice Chair. So just to follow up on that, so what you're saying is you are already going to be spending. You're always looking at what you can spend out of the fund, and sometimes you spend more, and sometimes because it's you can kind of plan ahead for when it will be replenished. Is that what you're getting at? You said you were going to spend 3.5, but we're only at 2.5.
Yeah. So, but because one of the things is we have built up a little bit of a fund balance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because of our inability to get to use that as matching funds for our grant program, which thank you for getting us out of GMA jail. Everybody involved, we can start revisiting those and attacking those. That is planned and programmed into those out years to be able to have matching funds. There's even really cool opportunities. If we're lucky, we might even be able to get some equipment out of some of the loan programs that we're now eligible for. We're very excited to explore. And
So that kind of changes some of your budgeting thought process now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's really just, we're fortunate right now to have some fund balance that we can use to kind of spend down and ramp up as the fees increase. So we wanted to give you some slides of kind of what's what's the bad and what's the good out there. So you can just see an example of an area where we have not been able to maintain a properly ditched road prism. As opposed to those images on the right in areas where we have been able to do our ditching that can handle these runoff events and properly convey the water without degradation to the roadway. So this is, again, this is very visible work, which I think is going to be big for the community. They're really going to see those dollars go right back into the road, really, you know, eventually touching every road mile we get to. So on the left, you can see just our sweeper work. Obviously, that's work that we do today. We might be expanding that program a little bit here, but there you see on the right, some of the culverts that give us big challenges there, whether they get crushed and damaged or they get completely blocked with sediment that's what ends up. One of two things will happen. The water will hit that area and then overtop the roadway, and then we have issues, or it finds a new path. And that could be almost worse than it overtopping the road, because it'll basically make itself a new culvert if and blow a hole through the side of the road, which means we're rebuilding that entire portion of the roadway. So keeping these cleaned, keeping the water moving, you know, kind of the old, you know, civil philosophy on that is you never stop water, you just keep it moving. Here's some, you know, this is a big deal because, you know, when we can protect our roads, we have better roads, but also that offset to the road fund means that goes right back into preservation. Every dollar that we have that we can goes into preservation. So that's more chip seal, more overlay, more patching. I mean, a lot of the mud boils and frost that we had this year, you know, that's not a pothole fix. That is, we have to come out and patch stretches of roads with our overlay crew here, which we will be getting up and running here in the couple months or so. So just revisiting the recommendation would be to adopt a minimum level of service, but for the entirety of the county, and a predictable set of rates over the next 4 years that would increment by $1 a month, moving out into 2029. And so if this is still the direction the board is comfortable with, we would move forward, notice a public hearing, and consider adopting the service area, which is includes some code changes and that set of rates. Last slide.
And so if I remember from your last presentation, some folks are actually paying less than this right now and some are paying more. So this is kind of a blended rate for 2026. Okay, so then everyone in the unincorporated county would be paying this amount. Okay. And you think this is what happens once we get to 2029? Like, what do you think sets us up to be stable into the future?
Yeah, I think after 2029, we'd just be talking CPI. I think that we would have a good operational program. Certainly revisit it with you all, and see how everything is playing out, what kind of, again, grant opportunities we're looking at, but we wouldn't anticipate anything significant beyond that.
So the 4-year approach, can you talk through why, like, having us commit to the 4 years at this level, how does that, rather than 3 years, or what?
That was simply a recommendation from staff. Actually, our consultant's recommendation was we do it in 2 years and just go right up to the 7 in 2027. So we would just, I think they said 550 to 7 in 26 and 27. We thought since this is going to be new for some folks, it would be an easier fee to kind of deal with or whatever, or to ramp it up slowly. It also gives our program time to ramp up. There is gonna be some stormwater staff and equipment we will need. So it's not just immediately we're flooding out the entire program. We can kind of work our way into some of those additional activities and really build out, well, what a real good programmatic approach to things like, where are, our worst culverts and prioritizing our repair schedule. Where is our ditching most needed first, and then we start working into that maintenance level program.
Commissioner French?
So this is a fee that would be charged per parcel regardless of size.
I'll let Ben talk to that.
It is based upon an equivalent residential unit, and so the fees that we presented here are for a home. If there's a commercial property, is actually based upon impervious surface, so we determine the impervious surface of the site, and so they are charged for this fee that's presented.
So if I've got a home that's sitting on 1 acre or a home sitting on 20 acres,
It's the same.
it's the same. Okay.
Can you touch on, again, the anticipated additional FTEs to implement the program?
Yeah, so
And I guess, would this be considered a new department within Public Works, or?
the department exists. Our stormwater utility sits in Ben's program, a water program. Bill is the head of that program. So it was established in 1992. We have a stormwater utility. So a large share of the revenue is going into that road fund offset. We want to do as much of this work as we can with existing staff. So what that's going to likely allow us to do is not continue to shrink headcount in our road maintenance. We've just, with the budget realities we have and inflationary pressures, we have to lose basically a person a year with the current funding constraints. That's going to shore that up, so we're not bleeding staff in the districts. We will need a small, we don't know the exact number. We're thinking it's maybe 3 or 4 folks in the stormwater program to manage our new permit requirements. We have to now inspect all of the private stormwater facilities, which is a huge amount. I think 2 to 1, right, compared to public facilities, or is it even worse? Yeah, I think that's what Chris has shared with me. So there is work we have to do on the permit side, and then we're gonna need probably a couple of resources for all that project planning, for all those design for all those culverts. If we bid some of this out, we'll likely contract out some of the work as well, like cleaning. There's some companies that they're just really efficient, fast at it. They're gonna be great. The ditching, all that's gonna be done in-house. So I'd say it's probably 3 or 4 headcount.
When similar to our stormwater, the cleaning crews that take care of the catch basins and dry wells and the backdring, that entire effort was programmed and managed by the stormwater utility staff. Maintenance does the work, they program it and do the coordination and the reporting for it. And we would anticipate that same type of structure going for the ditching program and the culvert cleaning. So there'll be a lot of additional office work for the stormwater utility to run those programs for maintenance.
Commissioner Jordan?
So what's the total revenue of the current utility on an annual basis?
Right about 2.5.
Okay, so the 3.55 for the year 1 includes a $1 million fund balance starting. That's not the entirety of the current fund balance though, correct?
Correct.
Because there's other needs for that with matching is what you're saying.
Yeah, so it built up over time while we were in jail. So there was a program component that was set aside for that. So the fund balance built up to a little more north of 10 million. We want that at about 5.
Okay.
That covers us for an emergency capital project as well as our operating cash flow. So we plan to bring that down to about 5 over the next 2 years.
Okay, and do you have specific plans for that today? Is that related to the permitting?
So
Something else?
yes, so the needs right now exceed that 2.5 to meet all of our requirements. But as we, as we show that ramp up between roughly 6 in 26 to 10 million in line, we can use that fund balance to ramp up even faster. And additionally, we would be having discussions about, if we expand the service area today, paying for some of this repair work, that restoration, which would draw down that fund balance pretty quickly as well, because right now the road fund's eating all of that.
Well, it's nice to see the savings to the road fund kind of spelled out pretty clearly, because that shows a really good bang for the buck. So, very good.
That's a good slide. Thanks for bringing that back.
It's great.
No, it really is. These are all $2-for-$1. They really have an enormous impact on our infrastructure and, both preserving it, but then also being able to put money back in roads is going to be really a game changer.
Well, the interplay with maintenance and staffing, the flexibility that gives us, because this programmatic work seasonal, right? But that allows us to keep those staff for the winter operations and other things that aren't part of that same season. So there's a lot of plus self-performance work, similar to preservation work is a fraction of the cost of contract in most cases.
Any timeline? When are you thinking for the public hearing? Because I know there's gonna be notice requirements.
If the commissioners are comfortable, we'll drop the notice of public hearing on the legislative agenda for next week. And then I think because of the spring break, I think it would be the 15th.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ben, we're sticking with
Next
you.
topic, yeah, same,
EPA.
Yeah, so this is another item that we're briefing you as another update from last week, and this is, some of these things are happening pretty fast. This is a proposed timeline to, and my recommendation to move forward with renewal of the existing APA with an addition of the city of Spokane to it. And so this has a timeline in order to make it for the May 2nd deadline to elections office. It has to happen relatively quickly. Board briefing up there on 3/25, which I think you don't have a briefing that day, and it would probably be a very similar briefing as what we have today. So notice of public hearing on the 1st, and then public hearing on the 22nd of April. And related to this, and we're working with other cities that are involved in the APA, is the city of Spokane Valley is working with their council for mid-April. City of Liberty Lake, as we mentioned last week, has already passed a resolution. Millwood is also moving forward. They have a situation where they have only a monthly meeting and they have a 2 review period for their council. So they're working through how they were able to get on, maybe have a special meeting for them. And then the other one is the city of Spokane is very interested in joining. I briefed one of their committees last week, and they passed a resolution to recommend to the city council to move forward to rejoin the APA after a 20-year hiatus. A couple other things that we talked about last week. Next slide.
Just one other note on that, on the city of Spokane. I also joined Marlene and presented to the city council PIES committee yesterday. And asked a lot of good questions and were very favorable, and sounds like they're interested in moving forward. They certainly have the support of the mayor, their committee, and it sounds like city council is also in favor.
And so our recommendation for this is the renewal with the current APA with a little bit of precinct adjustments, and I'll get into those as we go forward, but it adds the city of Spokane and then retain the existing per parcel rate. So it's again also based upon an equivalent residential unit, $15 for water service, and then plus $15 if you use an on-site system and aren't connected to a centralized sanitary sewer. To the West Plains question is don't recommend including that. They could be included in a different APA. And then there's a map here towards the end, and this is information we shared quite a while ago to the board, but it represents about 10,000 parcels within the West Plains area, though it could be different. So this one is the existing APA is in the blue, the dark blue, and the light blue is the city of Spokane who's interested in joining. If you go to the next slide, this is the recommendation for the updated APA, and you can see on the north and the south side, there's some precincts that we propose to be removed. They're really on the outlying edges of the aquifer. They don't contribute significant recharge to the aquifer. They total about 2,500 parcels. And so it would just be the area that's shaded in gray. The aquifer outline is that blue that's behind that. That's the existing SBRP aquifer boundary as it exists today. The next slide is this. This is a slide we shared about a year ago about potential aquifer protection area, and it highlights some precincts in the vicinity of West Plains and Airway Heights. You could take more precincts and increase the number of parcels, adding Medical Lake, so the city would add more parcels. It's about 10,000 parcels, including the city of Airway Heights there. And again, not recommending to expand the APA, but just for perspective on what this would encompass. At the per rate charge of about, the other rate is about $22 parcel on average, it would generate about $200,000 a year, which could be used for studies or planning, hiring a project manager or somebody kind of who would have this as their job to work on this aquifer from the West Plains APA, if that's where to go that way. Next slide. So this is a list of the allowable expenses that are very flexible. They can be used. We've used them for sanitary sewer. City of Spokane Valley uses theirs for stormwater, and then as we presented, we've used it for monitoring, education. Some of the City of Spokane's interested in using it on some of the drinking water for their drinking water system. But in summary, we think it's appropriate to ask voters to renew the aquifer protection area in the existing service area. And it provides the revenue stream for water-related activities, and we're ready to move forward. We've prepared a ballot measure and resolutions that we can send your way to meet this May 2nd deadline. Available for any questions.
Mr. French. So I'm assuming you're prepared for the public comment period that will say, from the West Plains residents, why aren't you including us? So I'm assuming that you're preparing an adequate response to that, because that's probably going to be pretty intense. The other question will be, when would you propose creating an APA for the West Plains? And when would that possibly be on the ballot for voter approval?
I think the big question with the West Plains is what municipalities are in and which ones are out. So we really haven't had those discussions. So we have no idea if Airway Heights wants in, if Medical Lake wants in, if Cheney wants in, if the board would like a boundary as big as going all the way to Cheney or not. So I think that's a big part of the impetus, because the municipalities add a lot of headcount to that potential APA, and dramatically changes the revenue projection. I think we've gotten a lot closer to having a better program of what we would do with that West Plains APA. So I think we can speak to that a lot clearer. But that would be, I think the first and foremost is figuring out where the municipal jurisdictions are and allowing them to help guide the discussion of timing, because they're big parts of it, and they're probably going to have to be included to carry the vote.
And no argument at all, what you said. Have we asked the question for the three cities as to whether they want to be part of it or not?
I don't believe we have, no.
Okay. Is there any timetable for when you might ask them whether they want to be part of it or not?
Whenever the board directs us to, we'd be happy to start setting up times to talk on.
Okay. So then that takes the full board to direct you to extend that.
Well, it's the board has to say, we're interested in a West Plains APA.
Okay.
Staff, please go pursue discussions with the municipalities.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
When we discussed this last time, I know there was discussion on August versus November, and I know November, the city is running a large measure, but in August, the valley is, from what I'm reading, the valley is gonna have a public safety sales tax measure on in August, that they're doing a 1/10 of 1%. So that's what's being reported. Yeah, I believe they're doing that this week. They're discussing that about putting that on the August 5th ballot. So I mean, we're kind of in the same situation either way. I mean, the two largest municipalities, if we go August, one of them has a ballot measure on. If we go November, the other one has a ballot measure on. So just wanted to put that out there, just so we were trying to avoid it by going to August, but then we have a conflict with the other largest jurisdiction. So just putting it on the table.
I'd say just from our discussions of, certainly the Valley had mentioned that in our previous discussion.
Oh, they did, they did.
No, they did not.
Oh, did not, okay. Oh, okay.
They are scheduled for first touch with council on the 1st, second touch on the 8th, and then hopefully vote in on the 15th. We don't know how they will vote. Like we said, we've been kind of in the passenger seat with the timing decision. Certainly the city historically has voted very favorably. And when the city was out, it was a razor thin margin that it passed. So just from a likely success of a measure, I think the city is hands a more opportune horse to tie our wagon to. Just kind of anecdotally, I think August is a good time to be thinking about our aquifer and water, but this is absolutely your call. We really had to move quickly once we heard that the city was in and the city wanted August, because like I said, hitching our wagon.
Were you, I know there was discussion also last time we were briefed on this. Was anybody able to circle back with elections and find out, since the boundaries change, will this be on the ballot as a new fee or new creation, or will it be as a renewal?
Yeah.
Since it's changing.
Our legal advisor has spoken with the elections office, and we are able to use renewal language.
Even with completely new jurisdictions in it, potentially.
Well, every precinct that's included has at one point been a part of it.
So even if this went away and we brought it back in 10 years, we'd be able to say renewal, because at one point they were in there?
It's our understanding.
Okay. Commissioner Jordan?
I appreciate the comments about the valley. You never know what a perfect time is. I would personally still lean a bit toward August, just because I think water's on the mind at that point, but it's a valid point. Yeah.
Okay. Scott?
Can we go, just before I spend a little time on Commissioner French's question on the West Plains? So obviously the board's decision on the size of the EPA and what's in there. To me, it seems to make logical sense that you would have an APA for an aquifer, which is the Spokane Rathrum Prairie aquifer, and you'd have an APA for another aquifer, which is I don't know, a lot of Grand Ronde, and there's like 2 up there, right? So I think a concern that's been expressed is if you do one AP over the top of it, there's obviously a ton of demands on West Plains. We all know the issues they're dealing with. And there could be an unintended expectation that, hey, I know we're only generating X dollars up here, but everything else is generating all these things. We want all those monies to come out here. So this push-pull could create a unintended tension of those dollars. So it probably makes most sense, but again, it's the board's decision to, from my perspective, to keep the 2 separate. Do both if both are wanted, needed, and desired by the community up there, because there's obviously a lot of needs. But it's just sharing some of my perspective, and if that's the direction, to say let's start spooling up a
plan to get a West Plains APA on the ballot, then let's go in that direction. Support that.
I mean, I'm open to putting putting it out there to the West Plains residents if they want to create an APA. I don't think I would support combining it with this APA we're talking about today. I know there's been individuals who have come to public testimony and said they want that, they want it to be a part of this, and they've been very honest in their reason why. And they said, because I think if you created just a West Plains one, I think the residents would vote it down. But I also think if you loop in the West Plains to this existing APA, there's going to be sort of a desire by folks on the West Plains to say, well, our needs that we're facing with our water issues deserve all the money to come out here because we're facing bigger challenges than the folks in the valley or the city. And I don't really want to create those types of battles where you've got this massive APA and all of the funds, or at least a push for all those funds to go into just one small segment of that APA. But if they want to create their own APA, I'm willing to create and fund and support their own APA out there. I mean, I'll support putting that on the ballot at a date that's appropriate. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm comfortable with the recommendation for now, but not opposed at all to the dialogue happening with other jurisdictions out on the West Plains and begin discussing what that could look like.
I think it would be best for the leaders of the community in the West Plains to kind of figure out if it's what they want and what they want to design it, what dollar amount, if they're interested, so that they're really owning and shaping, what that would look like. To get, hopefully, if that's a pathway to monitoring and testing that they want to do, it really is important that they're fully invested. Yeah. But I appreciate you going to the city of Spokane and making presentations, and I support the August ballot idea. I guess we're just gonna see what happens with the city of the Valley and whether or not they want to be a part of that. But I know you'll be there to answer their questions and provide good feedback on all the education and testing that's already been happening.
I've had a number of, I think I've spoken to a majority of the members of the Valley Council, and they've expressed a desire to continue the APA to be a part of it, but those conversations were before I saw reporting that they're looking at putting a public safety ballot measure in August. So at one point, a majority was on board. I couldn't tell you as of today if a majority is still on board.
To any extent you all have council members on any of the city councils that have yet to take a vote, we appreciate any conversations that help them to lean into this.
Mr. French? So I will just articulate some of the conversations that have either come to the board or come to me. The idea of combining the two together is that the West Plains drains into Spokane River, Spokane Valley Aquifer through the Paleo Channel. So the two are, technically connected in that fashion and stuff. So that's the logic behind why you would have the two of them, or the two areas connected into one aquifer protection area. Certainly understand the challenges presented by that approach. And maybe we evolve to something like that. But I would like to encourage staff to reach out to the three jurisdictions and find out, have they had the conversation? And if they have, what's their desire? I mean, I agree, this has got to be something that's pushed by the leadership on the West Plains and stuff. So I would appreciate at least reaching out to them and say, have you had the conversation and what's your thoughts?
Have to.
Thank you.
Question, so I believe the notice of public hearing is the 25th. Is that correct, or is it the first?
It was the first, what we have it scheduled, so the first is later.
Would you guys like us to be back next week with an update, or feel like we're ready to rock? We really won't have any information on the cities until the public hearing.
I don't really know what you would update us on, then I'd say as soon as you know what the cities have done, even if it's shooting us an email to say. You know, the city voted yes this night, that's what, I mean, let us know as soon as you know, but I don't know having you guys come in next week. If the cities haven't done anything, is there something more you would tell us at that point, or
No, just timing.
then I'd say wait till you have more info and then come back.
And the notice of public hearing and the resolution will actually be a little bit vague because some of it's gonna come in right in the timeline. So we're gonna have it set up such that if a municipality doesn't join, be able to drop them off the list and not include their voting precincts in that.
Scott?
That's what I was gonna mention. So right now, what I'm hearing from the board is go forward with the notice of public hearing. That the notice will be on 4/1. And then with a target public hearing date of 4/22. Based on the timelines, or based on the other info from the other cities. City of Spokane will have likely taken the vote by that time. It's unknown. Spokane Valley is, so I think having the flexibility in there that allows some. We'll want to know that, we'll need to know that by the time the public hearing is held, the commissioners take action on it.
What was the date of the public hearing again that you're looking at?
22nd.
What they do? Okay. Okay.
So would it be better to move it to the next? I know that would be our very last chance, the 29th. But if it doesn't, the City of the Valley have their meetings on Tuesday nights.
Tonight.
So I was just thinking if. Can we, once we've posted notice of a hearing, you can't then delay that hearing. Like on the dais, we couldn't delay it.
We have to renotice it because we notice it in the newspapers.
Right.
Can't you
Or
continue?
you can continue.
Oh, we could continue. Okay, there you go. I was just trying to find a mechanism that we could continue to the next week if
Yeah.
the City of the Valley was gonna take an action that night or something. Okay.
And they have, at least staff has indicated that they hope to have a vote on the 15th.
Okay.
So we'd have to be more of a question for Matt and Jasper on working backwards, how much, because the prosecutor has to develop the ballot language and assuming that some of that stuff will be in
Oh,
advance.
Okay,
But does the 29th, we have to have to the auditors elections by the 2nd of May, so that
so we don't actually
pretty,
vote on
3 days.
the ballot language that's developed. You could be working on that as we're considering.
We'd want
the hearing.
the earlier date, the option to continue. That gives us the most amount of flexibility. From my perspective.
Okay, I think we're good.
Right.
Next up, Deb Geiger, step on line.
Oh, here she is. This is revisiting an item we have previously discussed. We had talked about our desire to pursue a sole source for disposal of our waste. We had to go through contract negotiations once we had the green light to pursue that. So Deb's back here to brief you on where that's going, and then this is a public hearing.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Just a quick desire to hold our own disposal contract for the landfill and disposal portion of our garbage instead of going through the city. And when we started looking into it, the reason we want to do county held is better efficiencies. We have some cost savings. We have better control of our waste and where it goes. And as we looked into it, we realized, and we'll go to the next slide, if that's okay. we realized that our choices of landfills, it made it very obvious that there was one landfill in particular that would be a cost savings compared to all the rest when you add transport into the equation. So we were looking at sole source for Adams County. We, since that time that we've seen you last, we've negotiated terms with Waste Management. And we actually have a contract in the previous slide, we actually did see a contract number that we got from purchasing. It's all gone through legal and purchasing both, so we're good to go. I believe, next slide, please. What I'm here for, and I'll tell you the terms of the contract in a moment, we're just asking for approval to have a March 25th resolution so we can get on with the public hearing for these services and get final approval on the contracts. Next slide, please. Contract terms we negotiated with Waste Management is fairly easy. We got a good price of $31.50 a ton to their landfill. We also got a very good price at Graham Road landfill for $47.19, all fees included. And that will be a lot of our non-processable, non-burnable garbage, the inert waste that we can separate out. So we'll have potential savings on that piece as well. And Waste Management will comply with all the applicable regulations that are required. They're also responsible for the closure plus closure costs in the event that the landfill ever closes in our lifetime. We've negotiated 10-year term, so the overall amount, depending on the tonnage that we send, is somewhere between 8 million and 28 million over the 10 years. Price adjustments based on CPI. Is that the last slide? Yep. So that's where we're at. Waste Management is signing it this morning so we can get it over to purchasing, having to the clerk for next week. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner French?
So, in the agreement that we have currently with the city, we can still use the waste energy plant property for receiving waste, and I'm assuming that you would use that property to assemble containers to be able to ship down to Adams, or would you just ship out of our transfer stations and not go to a central collection agent's site?
It would go straight from our transfer stations.
Okay, so with the waste that's collected at the waste energy plant, do they have compaction equipment there for preparing containers for shipping? Because I know they have, for the ash waste, but I can't remember whether they have any compaction equipment there for container waste.
I believe they landfill any of their waste, except with the exception of Graham Road, and I believe that's top loaded.
Okay,
They'll only send non-burnable waste to Graham Road, and then they burn the rest of theirs at the energy facility.
okay, and is Graham now lined? Is it a lined site then?
Yes.
What class is it?
It's for inert waste, so it's oh shoot, now you're really.
I'm sorry, you can get back to me later. I'm just concerned about contaminants leaking through the liner like PFAS or anything else that might continue to degrade the aquifer up there.
Yeah, I know they have, they've got all of the modern amenities, if that's what you want to call them, for landfill, and it's lined, and they have collection systems, but they're not allowed to put anything putrescible in the landfill, so they don't put organic waste. It's just strictly inert. They do take asbestos and some types of soils, but they're put into one section, and I believe they are actually what they call burrito wrapped. That, to help with that, but it's all within the.
So doing the haul from Spokane to Adams is going to be a waste management vehicle, not a county vehicle.
actually our transport contract that we currently have is for
Okay.
Dietrich. Truck,
You too?
Dietrich Trucking,
Okay,
so it'll be their containers and trucks.
okay. Okay. Just working through my head, the transfer and as I remember, the Adams site was trying to develop rail access to there. So one of the folks with Waste Management was telling me that they're working to try and get rail to that site. And I don't know whether that rail was coming from Spokane down or whether it was coming from someplace else. And so that they could increase their intake. But
The last time I spoke with them about it, they said it was in their long range plan, but that it was a ways off because the rail that went to the site was converted to a rail to trails, so they would have to put new rail in, which I haven't seen any routing or schematic design or anything along those lines.
Okay, all righty, thank you.
So nice thing is we do with our disposal options now is all directly contracted with the county. Our transport directly contracted with the county. We, for the first time ever, all the cards are in our hands.
Right.
Just as a reminder, previously it was just all contracted with the city.
Yeah.
They took a chunk of it, half of it or so, to waste energy and then landfill the rest. And where did that rest of it previously go?
So. I'll let Debbie.
Yes, the history was, it was going to Roosevelt, which had been that way for a long time. And then recently the city did their contract and went with Waste Management. And then
To this. Okay. And that would have been trucked as well, because there's rail.
At Roosevelt, they did rail.
Nice thing is with our new compactor. It's moved with the trucking containers, and so we're at really good weights on our loads. And again, another thing, Deb's team just done an amazing job of, again, just putting the onus back on us to do a really good job. So our container weights are up, but we don't pay per weight on our truck, we pay per trip. So as we get our weights up and we continue to maintain that higher container weight, we're just saving more and more money.
Crews have been phenomenal, our new staffing, they've been rocking it, so.
Last question. So, based upon the direction that seems to be shaping over in Olympia, the city is not going to get the exemption that they were looking for from the carbon tax. So if that facility closes, how does that impact our system? Because I think we still use part of that site for our system. And so have you given any thought to what might happen or what adjustments we might have to make?
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is all the garbage on the West Plains, so all the unincorporated, Mediflake, Fairchild, all of those. You know, we have capacity at our Valley Transfer Station. I assume, but I don't know, that the city would still use the waste energy for our transfer station. If they don't, then we would have to do some planning.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned last week at the legislative update, some of the feedback that the city had gotten on their bill was not that they weren't making a compelling argument, but that the legislature didn't want to single out a single exemption by law, and that there was a plan for the staff to do a full review of the who's in, who's out of the Climate Commitment Act later this year, in which case they may or may not get some relief in that process.
Yeah, in the briefing we had with Mike Burgess this morning, he said that the bill that would have exempted them was dead. So I understand. Okay.
Just maybe something to put into your planning discussion process with the city. when I was in Olympia, speaking with governor's staff about this, trying to explain the importance of that facility for the regional system. One of the staff members who's kind of focuses on the environmental area mentioned something about an existing, I don't know if exemption is the right word, within the Climate Commitment Act that could be something to explore. I think it was called like a hard to decarbonize industry. So there's something already written into the law that says, okay, we'll give you some relief if you qualify as a hard to decarbonize industry. So would garbage incinerators be considered hard to decarbonize, and that could be an alternative route for relief through the existing law? I don't know, something to, I had not heard anybody talk about that before. It was kind of thrown out as an idea. So just something maybe to dialogue with the city about if it goes the way it seems to be going in the campus.
And kind of back to the waste energy question, how much we utilize, whatnot. Correct me if I misstate this, but we send them everything they can take. And what typically happens is when they do shutdowns for major improvements, that's all oftentimes when we used to do what we call bypass before. They take all their garbage from their city municipality and stockpile it in anticipation of being back online. So we do everything we can, and then the stuff that we can't, that's about the 50%, is what we send elsewhere.
Another question, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yep.
The city is doing its study with Carbon Quest, trying to figure out ways to reduce carbon output. Do we have any idea of the time frame of that being done
It has to be done by, I believe, June 30th.
of this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
It got funding. Got the-
Because it's commerce funding,
They got the funding like a year and a half ago.
but they had to wait.
Which they couldn't spend.
Yeah.
So then they just authorized the contract 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that work had begun before the funding was authorized. I didn't hear nor see anything.
But it'll be interesting to see what that shows, feasibility study.
They know they have to pedal to the metal on
Move quick.
doing that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, Tammy Wilson from WSU, Spokane County Administrative Manager.
Hello, commissioners. Tammy Wilson, I'm the administrative manager for the WSU Extension. And I'm here today to ask the commission to review and approve the Appendix A, which is attached to the MOA from Spokane County to Washington State University. And we sign this Appendix A every year, but we don't sign the full MOA. So this MOA, or Appendix A, states that it's non-federal funds, which is very important for WSU because we use them as matching funds for federal grants. And the total is $303,506. Approved in the previous budget. Are there any questions?
I guess my question, these are dollars that have already been allocated as a part of the 2025 budget. That would be, this is just expending the dollars that have already been set aside.
Yes, yeah,
Good.
it's just signing that document.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's accurate. One thing I wanted to bring up with the commissioners on the heels of our budget conversations, this interagency agreement that we have does require that we provide, if there's an intent to change it or terminate it, we have to give notice by October 1st. So I'm going to suggest if this is one of the areas that the commissioners are considering for budget adjustments on, we should do that to give notice to the issue earlier rather than later. We miss that date, then rolls over, and so it would just be a good communication, I think, to have. So I would recommend that if that's. Not saying we're not going to, it's just saying. Not at this rate, well, we have some budget challenges, we're gonna be, get back to you and let you know kind of what our available funds are gonna.
Mr. Waldron?
So what are you suggesting then in terms of the communication and when?
Prior to October 1st.
Okay, I mean, it would have to be way
I would
farther,
say
way
so.
earlier than that
Yes,
date.
yes,
Okay.
that's why I'm bringing it up now is, let's do it soon. Let's just, it's a letter kind of similar to what we would probably contemplate for our other outside agencies. Notifying them of our budget challenges and we will likely not be funding at the same level as we have in the past, so early communication and we'll be in discussion more as our budget starts to take shape.
Do all of our outside agency contracts have similar notice provisions? Or is it vary by contract, or do we know?
I think they all vary. This is different, this is a little bit different because it's between government agencies. And it has a specific interagency that goes on multiple years. That's why the notice provisions in there. I believe the other ones are year by year sort of stuff. Depends on what the commissioners approve.
There's a number that have 180-day termination periods. 90-day or.
Kind of all important.
This would not be a termination, this would be a notice of, it's not gonna be status quo possibly. We give you guys flexibility.
I might just, no, I think we're gonna need to do that at some point. I'm just thinking it might make sense to talk about all the outside agencies together. And a more unified strategy of, do we want to just notify all of them?
Yeah.
Rather than doing it on a case by case basis, we might as well do it all together within the context of budget conversation, knowing that we do have a little bit of time on this, but we've got WSU is not the only one that we're just looking at this year for next year.
Makes a lot of sense.
Another question. Can you just talk about what these matching funds help accomplish?
Well, Gary Varela sent an email to the commissioners yesterday that talked about that specifically, about the grant, type of grant funds that WSU gets. So it says. Funds that, well, Carnes is the College of Agriculture for WSU, and that's where the extension programs are. And we receive 56,925,000, which is 28% of the budget from counties. And that's statewide. And those are all federal, non-federal funds. And so that allows us to use that to match any federal funds that we, any grants that we get through USDA, NIFA, all of our SNAP-Ed programs, our FNEP programs are funded. A lot of agriculture research is funded. I just received a grant for to study the codling moth in the Green Bluff area. So it helps us to, extend our research.
What, I didn't catch what you said, to study what in the Green Bluff area?
The codling moth.
Oh, moths?
Moth, yes.
Okay.
The codling moth attacks the apples and pears, and so we're studying the prevalence of the codling moth up in the Green Bluff area.
Okay.
For all the commercial growers up there.
I don't know if I got that email. Maybe it came.
He sent it yesterday afternoon.
It came at 5:11, yeah.
So who should I
5:11.
search for?
Gary Varela, VARRELLA.
Oh, okay. I think I had too many Garys
Yeah.
pop up. Okay.
So that explains a lot about the College of Ag and what we do. And the funding that we get.
Right, well, any questions right now about these dollars? In the discussion as far as this? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Justin Johnson. He knows, he is a person, okay. While we wait, Pat, anything media going on?
Yes, commissioners, we had a press release this morning for Veterans Services announcing some of their success last year. Should have been in your inboxes. Both in increase in the number of veterans they were able to help, along with a substantial increase in a number of resulting rewards from those cases. So we'll be trying to push that today. I also was notified yesterday from the city of Spokane that they would be having a release today. I got some comments from Ben Bradabo. I'm not sure if we've met the city's deadline or not. They wanted to send it out this morning. But it discusses their intent, the intent of the city council, I believe, on the APA, which is a good news item. There were just a couple of technical things in there that Ben had feedback on. So hoping to get that back to them. Those be the two big press items at the moment. Then yesterday, we had a commissioner interviewed by KHQ, following up on Director Sparber's presentation to the board on jail capacity. And there was some other interest for some online publications around that presentation as well. So it should have been in the news clips this morning, the KHQ piece, but it was it led the 6 o'clock news at least last night. And the main takeaway was more to come, continued discussions, but yes, we have a capacity issue and we have had for some time at the jail. There was also a question that came up in that interview about the budget. There was a big headline this morning from an online publication, which also should have been in the clips, that we've taken a little bit of issue with and how they're describing how the financial forecast was characterized yesterday. So I think we have some kind of bookending to do with that, or guardrails we need to put on. It's a forecast, it's not an actual there, et cetera, but it's kind of to be expected with some of the clicks, you know, it drives interest. That number was discussed, but it's just how it was characterized in the headline has attracted some interest. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get more media inquiries asking, what's this about? That's it for me.
The reasons I made the comment at the very end, this is not a budget deficit for current year. It's a forecast.
Yeah, I see they used the word deficit in the headline. You weren't clear enough, Scott.
We sent in one request about already for correction on that story, so we'll send in another. Headline requests are a little bit more difficult, but
All right, take it away.
Morning, commissioners. Thank you for squeezing us in today. This is some housekeeping items. This is our annual update to the board on our compliance, general fraud, waste and abuse, all required elements for our contract with Medicaid and the state. So it's a lot of documents. Most of these are similar that we've seen over the last couple of years, with some changes being implemented to statutory changes and requirements under CMS. I do expect in this next we'll even have more changes to look at. For now, we're completing the review for 2024 and looking to 2025. For most of 2025, our risk analysis that we have presented in the report does not identify any major concerns outside of what we did in 2024. So next slide, please. That's the general summation. The integrity portion we have to do for training internally, not only to Tampa, but also for fraud, waste, and abuse has also been completed or is in the process of being signed off and attested by staff. So that is also underway. We do that annually for all individuals as well as for our entire system of care. So minimum standards for all required elements are met. Next slide. So part of that will be approving again our training documents, which is required. Again, no major changes there. And then also our work plans and our summary reports. Key things to identify in our summary reports carried over from 2024 is we still have not figured out a way to do in our Raintree system. That's our system that does all of our EDR, our health record system, as well as tracking other data produced by providers for client feedback. They do it manually, and then we enter it in, but we don't have a way for them to enter it directly into the system without having significant protections. So that was the only error where we'd say there could be a loss of information. It's mitigated, it's low risk, but that's the only one that we identified in our report. Again, we shared this last year. Our team does really well, and that just ensures quality of care. Key areas that we had to do reports last year, and this was reported to the board previously, but in 2024, we had 3 instances of fraud, waste, and abuse we had to report. One instance was in one of our contract providers, their provider who was providing services had falsified documentation that they were credentialed. Actually, it was very convincing. They used other documentation, inserted their name through, looked like ChatGPT or something. It passed muster for the state, but then when we did an evaluation ourselves, it was caught, funding was pulled back, subsequent to CMS guidelines in the state Attorney General's office reported, and they declined to proceed because we had mitigated the risk. Again, it wasn't ours. In fact, the system in place caught it. I don't think I would have been able to catch it at the time that they submitted to me. So it just proves our system is safe. And we followed through as part of this in 2024, passing our team monitoring audit by the state. We had flying colors with that. We got a perfect score. We still got that. And then our auditor's report as well indicated completion with no indication or risk. So that's a summation of our plans. Our work plans reflect similar ones moving forward. Again, it's all detailed in there, but essentially we are on track to meet all elements and requirements with no significant risks identified. Any questions on that? Next slide. So just the request of the board is to approve all of these, including our errors, as well as the training documents going into 2025.
Any questions?
All right,
Looks good.
on that. And then we have one request. This is an update to one of the board's approved mental sales tax expansion projects. This was to identify youth respite. We've been talking about that for a while. Board approved for us to move forward, put out an RFP, and actually we're giving an update kind of what occurred on that, and then what we're looking at, asking the board to pivot as we look towards 2023.
President. So as you can see up there, we did put out an RFP for youth and adolescent behavioral health caregiver respite services, again, for services for youth to go to treatment therapeutic environment and provide respite for the primary caregivers of those youth to avoid things like acute hospitalization and keep the youth and family in the community with appropriate resources. We put that out. We had one applicant received, and we did do a scoring committee after the holiday season. It took us a little while to get a committee together for that, and we were planning to move that forward to the board to move forward with contracting. However, the applicant withdrew their application in February due to feasibility challenges given the current environment, focus shifting to providing more outpatient focused services for youth in the community. And so at this point in time, moving forward with caregiver respite, we only had one applicant apply. And given the current environment that we're in, we have some concerns about our ability to implement that currently with ongoing sustainability, hence what Justin indicated with the plan to pivot to another program, which is on the next slide. But before I jump into that, I'll pause here for any questions.
Is that a Medicaid concern? What does that mean, current environment?
Good question. For caregiver respite services and the amount of funding we had allocated, we're really looking at agency that already had some level of service being provided that they could just expand on as it pertained to respite services, bed services. And that's where their focus is more shifting to services through Medicaid on an outpatient basis versus the services that they provide in that setting.
But it is with the reality of Medicaid. The 1115 waiver expanded to allow for respite services under the health related service needs. We, with most providers now, are expecting that to be pulled from beds. There is some concern that there wouldn't be sustainability under that waiver because of its expansion. Then further, that the state's funding's restrictions on additional care, because respite is not a covered, has not been historically a covered service. They'll restrict back to providing what's necessary under their contracts. So a lot of that would be under foster care and respite for individuals under DD. So finding places and beds for them will take up the bulk of the safety responsibility. Extended for behavioral health, not an area the state has indicated will be expanded in the future.
Is that the same waiver that relates to the jail behavioral health?
It's a portion of that.
So is the knowing decisions may not be final, is the worry that the entire waiver could be revoked?
Not the entire waiver.
Okay, they can do a partial revocation, okay.
We had an update in our scrills this last week where the state gave an update on their projection. They won't know until September, federal budget comes along. But the hint that they're getting, well, first of all, the state had they had apparently no engagement with CMS for January till now. Apparently there was just no communication directed by the current administration. They are now opening up, but they are saying that there will be 800 million was what was identified by the feds on they want to cut from CMS or HHS. And so they know that there will be some, but there isn't clarity yet on where. But because Washington State has expanded and has just recently got their waiver approved, that's where the fear is, where some cuts may actually be applied.
Thank you.
The next item, which was again brought forward in October, was to expand or enhance existing contracted services through our provider network. As the VHSO, we can fund services for at or below the 220% federal poverty line. And the board approved to allow funding to allow us to expand that to the 350% federal poverty line. So opening up access to services for individuals that fall within that range, as well as helping to ensure ongoing sustainability of facilities with getting individuals into beds that then can be funded. And we did implement that into contract specifically with the Spokane Regional Stabilization Center beginning January 1st. So we are working with them on ensuring that those services are available to the community.
But we've been able to use mostly state dollars to cover that. And then we put the proviso request into early on this year when I knew it was going to be expiring with Mike and with our local representatives. He was able to get that in there in the Senate budget. That acute care diversion funds was reallocated to our region. So that's a great update, so long as the Senate budget continues to be a prominent budget moving forward. King County wanted to allocate it to them. We were able to keep it in Eastern Washington. Yeah, things are challenging right now.
Slide, please. Justin, did you want to give a little background on this project?
Yeah, so again, with the board's direction on utilizing the funds for upstream interventions and prevention services specific to youth, we began looking around, and this has been a part of our next phase of identifying where in the treatment can we do early intervention, while also leveraging existing resources so we're not going it alone. We recognize mental sales tax as we look towards the future may be strained with both sales being subject to that, as well as the reality of the current uses the board wants with that money towards CRSC project and various other things. So we wanted this money, if it's not going to this, can we use that same amount to benefit while also not having the full responsibility? So there's long-term, and one of those was in an educational environment where the focus is on safety. The current governor, as well as the legislature, would like those funds to remain in supporting schools and expanding services. So we thought, this is great. Can we partner further with schools? And we identified one school we met with, the Lumen School, where they talked about various programs they have incorporated. So based on that, we have a recommendation to pivot use of funds to support them.
Exactly, as Justin indicated, our hope is to support them by providing funding to allow them to have a behavioral health professional, credentialed professional in the school setting to provide access to behavioral health resources, coordination with other or existing services that youth and young parents are receiving within that environment to ensure that they're not having gaps in their service or treatment, and being connected to appropriate treatment, as well as to the essential resources that will help them be successful in ongoing sustainability once they move out of that environment and set them up for long-term success, as well as bridging those gaps that can occur for youth and young parents in those environments.
Yeah, the goal here really is to say, if we were to invest in a school, which is currently usually utilizing dollars to support this program, can we offset that cost so they can reinvest those dollars in other areas for, employment support or training? And that way we have a greater success for that transition of that individual into the community and being educated, trained without the impact socioeconomically, the strain of having to figure that all on their own. Greater success, investment in long-term future allows for them to utilize the money in that way. We can offset the behavioral side. So that's what we're recommending. Again, we think the benefits for the entire county, as any one of the county schools can refer students to a program, benefits all residents and ensures a greater look as we want to invest in their future and continuation of being productive members of society. So we are asking the board to let us pivot and explore this. Is that something the board would approve? With no additional change to the allocation already approved.
I'd support it. I heard about the school when it opened up. It got a lot of press. I think it's something that's needed. I think this would be a great addition to the programming they have there, from what I understand the way it operates. So I'd be supportive of it.
Same here.
Yeah, I appreciate you working with them because I think the work we're doing in some of the other school districts is really relevant to these students as well. And they don't have as many funding opportunities at a charter school, right? So anyway, I support it.
All right, I think we're good.
Excellent. Thank you all.
So this will come before us on a future
Yeah.
resolution to amend the
Well-
previous one, or?
Well, so we'll have to complete the RFP since the board already approved for this discretion for youth-based intervention. All that we'll do is complete the RFP, then contract will go before the board, then a resolution for a contract if it ends up being the board deciding.
I guess that's right. We wouldn't have approved your previous one because they dropped out before.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yep, that's right. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, Doug Chase. Doug, you've been hanging out a long time here.
What?
Last 2 days we've seen you
Yes,
here.
2 days in a row. See if I can be quick and exciting here today. This is kind of a fun one. We are looking at usage of the county logo. We have worked collaboratively with Aaron Gertel in the fairgrounds as well as Mr. Duff. Thank you, Pat Bell, for sharing the logo policy, which was really, really helpful, which is what brings me before you. We're certainly looking to follow all the proper colors and all of that, but when you get into the details of the policy, there's even some guidance in how logos will be shared in alphabetical order. Thank you, Ron. And in this case, there's also provisions for the board to bless other than alphabetical order. And I think most of you have had a chance to see what the new strength and conditioning building, which is what this slide shows a photo of, or a rendering of, I should say. And we have outlined and proposed use of some county branding out there in combination with the Spokane Indians logo, and also trying to market the Fair and Expo grounds. And this is right there at that main entry to the Fair and Expo grounds, as everyone walks right by it. As proposed, I've just proposed to use the county logo. One of I think the missions I have in mind with the huge investment out there and improvements is helping the community to recognize this is a Vista Stadium as a county-owned facility. And I think right now, no one through use of signage would know that. And so this is our first opportunity at trying to change that and incorporate that. So we have on, I think this side of the building faces north, if I'm not mistaken. We're have recommended use of the 3 different logos. And if we go on to the next slide. Oops, do I have a prior slide then? So next the it's after yours. Okay, no. Next slide. Yep, that's one of them. I think my version, the numbers changed, so.
Those are the only slides we have in
Yes,
our.
nope,
deck.
that's perfect. I just have them in different order here. And so we would have a duplicate of the Fair and Expo, and that's facing the silo, if you will, if you can visualize the silo at the Fair and Expo ground. So as people walk out of the building, they would see that on the end, as well as that northern side. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here. If this is acceptable to the board, we would proceed. We've identified, I believe it's like an aluminum type professional signage material. It's consistent with the signage that's currently located throughout the stadium. That looks very good. So this would be consistent with that. And I'm kind of excited about the opportunity to integrate and recognize the Fair and Expo Spokane County ownership and along with the Spokane Indians in the collaborative venture that we have out there. And so this would be an opportunity to do that. And I think short of the alphabetical order, I think we are looking to be consistent with the policy, but ultimately that comes down to your approval. And there's some very strong language here. So I want to, in the policy, make sure that I obtain that approval. I don't want you to have to look for a new parks director. They don't mess around in this logo policy. So I am pleased to come before you for your review and consideration.
We've disciplined people for less.
Yes, my goodness, this is a strong policy.
So I do say, or I do see in the briefing sheet, it does specify under fiscal impact. There's no additional cost with this. This was wrapped up into the original planning.
It's included
Okay.
within our construction budget out there and the work that we're doing. We've envisioned the signage, so it's really your approval of use of the county logo in combination with the co-branding of the Fair and Expo grounds, again, a county facility, and the Spokane Indians.
So this is just the one building. As more renovations take place, is the county logo going to be in additional places throughout the grounds?
We don't have any proposals right now for that, so this is the first.
Okay.
I am hopeful that there'll be additional opportunities, which case I would bring those back before you.
Okay.
Before using the county logo in that way. Consistent with the policy.
I think it's great that we put the county logo on taxpayer fund, Avista Stadium. I think it's great.
Question, so this would be out of alphabetical order? That,
Yes, I'm not, with the Fair and Expo.
just want to be clear, are we invoking the policy?
It may possibly be out of alphabetical order, there really wasn't provisions within the policy that recognize, say, use of a unique county department logo like Fair and Expo in conjunction with the official county logo and co-branding. It was just, it didn't really, certainly the policy tries to envision all different applications, but
This looks good to me. I just wanted to be clear that if my wife asks me, what did you do at work today? I can say blessed, other than alphabetical ordered signage.
there you go.
Can you explain, so if all organizations provide equal contribution to the effort, all logo types appear in alphabetical order and should be similar size. Is that the bullet that you're looking at? So.
Yes. It was one of many within the policy that we tried to make sure we were considering. Ultimately, the county commissioners will have formal enforcement responsibility and the ability to approve whatever you like, quite frankly. It's how the policy is, how I interpret the policies.
I guess, so. Are you saying these three logos should be in a different?
No, I'm saying
Is
that
that what
looks great.
Okay. What was it? F for fair, Spokane County and Spokane Indians. So it's alphabetical order right there.
That's
We're
fine.
Down to the end, yeah. And ours is bigger, which it should be. Our
Yes.
logo is, we have a
Yes.
big, beautiful logo and it should be
Absolutely.
bigger than everybody else.
Exactly. To help recognize it as a county-owned facility.
Not saying is that.
Just to add some context to this, the board, I believe, has delegated to the CEO and through the CEO to the communications office responsibility for reviewing this, but it is ultimately the board's job to approve or deny these requests. I think the question Commissioner Kearns asked about costs is important, but we also want to think about brand equity, and that's, I think, what the co-partnership language of your policy is currently written contemplates, which is depending on how much money we're putting into something, should be the size of, approximate of the logo. We do, I will just flag for you, have a few departments we're working to try and bring back into compliance. Sometimes what departments or programs or initiatives that are either funded in whole or in part by the county like to do is hire a graphic designer to go out and create a new logo, which is not compliant with the policy. And so we are trying to wrangle those in, but I don't anticipate any enforcement actions in the near term on that. But as Commissioner French has noted, and I think might have had a hand in this policy, writing it originally, is we want the value of taxpayer dollars to be associated with the county brand. Now, what are taxpayers getting for their taxpayer dollars? What is that value? And when the logo's not present, or the logo is distorted or is illegible or unreadable, that does create that association problem. And of course, how many times have you heard, oh, that's a county facility, that's a county building? So we don't want to incur a bunch of extra expenses and costs, but even putting the county logo on something like a transfer station or on a vehicle, all of those type of requests usually funnel through our office. So I just wanted to provide that context to you. So it is important in the sense of the branding of the county and not diluting it, and making sure things like banners that go up on the county logo or on the county courthouse, even have our logo present. So that's it.
Looks good.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and we as a department try very hard to follow the policy and reach out to the right folks, and we have no desire or plans to go rogue with anything different. We enjoy helping to call due attention to the great investments that the county makes, and I think this is an opportunity. Okay. Very good.
All right, thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
That brings us back around to miscellaneous. Yep, Ashley, I see you're first on here. You touched on this yesterday. Do you have more to add?
So I did touch on the commission on salaries yesterday, but I have a new one actually to bring to you guys. So it was just brought to my attention yesterday that there's a very old resolution that we need to update for our risk management team. So back in 2009, there was a matter of appointing an agent to receive claims for damages made against Spokane County and its officers, employees, or volunteers. This person who's been appointed into that as part of their job duties is our risk management director. So on this prior resolution from 2009, Steve Bartel had been named as the agent appointed. We just need to do a cleanup and update that to Dan Gadd, who is now the director of risk management. So we will have that on your consent agenda for next week, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that it just surfaced and we need to move forward in making sure we get it corrected.
And that's something that has to have the individual's name. It can't just have the title of the position, and then whoever happens to be in that position, it's sufficient.
That's a good question, actually. I will ask the attorneys. So we'll tie in with our attorney and make sure, but that is a great question. So we will figure that out. And then whichever one, if we are able to go more broad, we'll have that next week. If we are not, then you'll see Dan Gadd's name on there.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scott.
Commissioners, on your agenda this afternoon is a requesting approval for a contract with a property management firm for managing Monroe Court Building. If you recall, we went out with, we used the we used the existing property management firm when we purchased the building for some continuity. We then went out for an RFP. We got 3 responses back on it. the group of folks who reviewed the RFP came back with a recommendation. That's Black Realty, who is the existing person that or company that we're using, not Black Realty, I'm sorry, Black Property Management, who's managing the building today. So it's only 30-something thousand a year, but we included options to renew for annual renewals, and because it's over could be over multiple years, it has to have board approvals. Just FYI, and that's just allowing us to continue with our property management services over there.
That was Black Realty Management.
Correct.
So their property management for that.
Yes.
Let's see, we've got GSI on today for the ADO designation. Anybody have any questions about anything separate? Okay. Then we do have one public hearing, the Comcast franchise.
Potentially one executive session item for this afternoon. Nothing is.
One exec.
Okay. You don't have it. I have one. I don't have one. Yes.
We have one exec session. That is acquisition lease of real estate, RCW 4230-110-1B. That'll include the board, Matt Folsom, myself, Doug Chase, Jasper Bolton, and Jonathan Smith. And expecting about 15 minutes, no action.
Okay. I assume Mary will be on that call. She had indicated she was gonna be on this morning, so. I assume she'll be in the.
Oh, you mean the afternoon one?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I assume she'll be at the 2 o'clock.
I don't know. Brenda wasn't sure. I thought she said maybe not, but who knows?
Okay, I know, when Mary told me she was gonna be gone these 2 weeks, she said this week she was gonna be on all the meetings. I just wasn't sure. Something must have came out, or I know she had less than stellar cell service yesterday, it seemed like, so maybe that was the problem again. Maybe somewhere remote. I don't know.
On more miscellaneous.
Yeah, we're in miscellaneous. Go for
Sorry,
it.
stand between you and lunch. We have received multiple commissioners, I understand, a request from CREM to comment on yesterday's jail capacity presentation. Sounds like they've reached out to maybe 2 commissioners. In the absence of the chair as the board's spokesperson, I would prefer to handle that or recommend that we make Mike Sparber available, but if a commissioner individually would like to speak to the media, of course, you have that prerogative. It'd be up to you and your staff to set that up. If you would like assistance from the communications office, or if the vice chair would like to designate a commissioner spokesperson, otherwise it would fall to the vice chair in the chair's absence. So just pointing that out.
Oh, just to follow up on that. So I was gonna watch the KHQ one. I haven't watched it yet.
It was outstanding.
Great
Is that
TV.
because Commissioner French was interviewed?
I'm just saying.
So, yeah, I guess I was just wondering if Mike was also interviewed for that one.
He's available as a subject matter expert, but
Right.
generally when a commissioner is interviewed, we can pre-brief you. We pre-brief that reporter just at a staff level off camera to provide some context so they can, not so they can ask the right questions, but so they can be really informed. So we don't end up with having to set in corrections afterwards. But it's going to be probably a 45, second, or excuse me, 45-second story. You're going to get 2 or 3 sound bites maximum. Yesterday's story focused on questions like, how does this affect the community? What's coming next? What are you doing about this issue? Those kind of things. And so there was a helpful amount of context we provided the reporter about the last 10, 20 years, about the current kind of constraints, numbers. There may be, based on the reporting over the last 2 days, there may be some additional wrinkles that they want to iron out, additional questions. Is the board considering closing one facility, consolidating, those type of questions? So it could get a little more technical. And I don't think the board, while you've had a presentation, you haven't discussed any of that.
Couldn't we just send the clip from KHQ over to Crim and say, here it is?
They're copycats. They're copycatting. HQ is on it. Yeah, we're on it.
I haven't been contacted, so.
I think they
haven't
sent it
reached out
to-
me.
Yeah, they
To
sent
us.
it to
I don't
me
know.
and Amber.
I don't know why.
I'm not sure either.
But I mean, I'm happy to say something, but I just think a lot of it was just new, updated information about the ongoing challenges that we've had with our jail capacity. So, and there's not, we haven't decided on any next steps, except that we know we need to continue trying to find a way to, it's just,
I think part of it's the contract with the consultant or the A&E firm, what's that
well,
looking
they're
into?
interested in like what we're doing to.
Yeah,
maximize their
increase
current-
capacity downtown,
current space.
potentially, this type of thing. So that's some of that background and context as far as we could provide.
Well, I was on yesterday, so I mean, if you want to do
You go for,
today.
hey, you've mastered it, so you
Well,
go
I
ahead.
mean, but I just
I have a
responded.
full
'cause they-
schedule today, you handle it.
Okay, fine.
Good.
Just want to cover that services. Potential. Said later.
The press release?
Yeah.
Oh, I covered it.
We did. Okay,
You
sorry.
talked about that a little earlier.
Yeah, nice job.
Last year.
Yeah, kudos to Kat and Chris and their team and Mark Lou who helped put that all together on vet services.
That's great.
Anything else, or is that it for the morning? Doug, do you have another one? I know you've been joined by,
Only what for the exec session.
oh, but that's for this afternoon, right?
No, this
Now.
one's right now.
Oh, you're doing right now? Oh,
One.
I'm sorry.
possible for Saturday.
okay, let's go for it. Okay. So do you want to state that again, that this was for the real estate, correct?
Yeah, that was acquisition, lease of real estate, 15 minutes, no action, board. Board, Doug Chase, Jasper Coulter, Jonathan Smith, Matt Wilson, and myself.
All right, this is RCW 42.30 So, all right, so we'll be going into executive session, no action. Anticipated at the end of this executive session, we'll adjourn for the morning and we will reconvene this afternoon at our legislative meeting at 2:00.